we are going to draw more Lewis dot structures or Lewis dot diagrams. Either way, they're the same thing. So far, you've drawn the single bonds, the double, and the triple. And so now you're getting ready to draw in the last of the series of resonance and polyatomics. So let's move forward to that and see what all that's about. So in resonance, it says that some molecules may have more than one way of drawing their Lewis dot structure, because on one side you may have a single bond and on the other side you may have a double bond. So we call these resonance. So if there's more than one way to draw the structure, then we call them resonance. So let's start with this first example, ozone. So no different. We're still going to count our number of total valence electrons. So ozone, and it's just O, oxygen. There are 3. So we have 3 times, and then oxygen is in group 16, so it has 6 total valence electrons. So that gives us a total of 18 valence electrons. So our next step after doing that, we're going to attach the oxygens together by a bond. So we're going to put it just like this. So as you can see, we've got 3 oxygens, and I have 3 oxygens. My O's don't look too good, but here we have a single bond, and remember, a single bond means 2 electrons, and then we have another single bond. So we've used up 4 out of the 18, so that gives us 14. The rule states we need to complete an octet for the outside atoms and then move inside. So I'm going to do that next. So I'm putting my oxygen's electrons to make an octet. And we put 6 on this one and 6 on that one. So that gives me a total of 12. So I have 2 left over. And so that goes on the middle one. Well, if you look, our outside oxygens, both of them have an octet. So this 2, 4, 6, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. But now let's look at the middle one, 2, 4, 6. Now, on the previous video you watched, you saw that when you don't have 8 valence electrons for your middle one, then you're going to have to take 2 from the outside. So I'm going to erase these 2 here. And then I'm going to place those 2 as a bond. And so now it looks like that. So now let's look. We have 2, 4, 6, 8. So that one is good. 2, 4, 6, 8. Now the middle one is good. 2, 4, 6, 8. And so the outside left is good. So now we have a Lewis dot diagram for ozone. But here's the thing. How is it that I did it for the right side? Could I have not taken 2 of these instead of those and made a double bond on this side? Well, yes. So we have to draw it twice to represent both drawings, and that's a resonance. So now I'm going to draw it again, but this time I'm going to put the double bond on the left side. So I have 2 and 2. And then I'm going to keep my single bond on my right side. And then I have my 2 dots, my 2 electrons there. So now we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8 for the middle one, 2, 4, 6, 8. So that whenever you have more than one way of drawing your Lewis dot structure, that's called a resonance. And here's the other thing that you'll have to do. Whenever there is a resonance, you have to put it in parentheses. So sometimes you can have 3 ways to draw it. So, but this one only required 2 ways. So draw it both ways and then put your brackets. So let's do another example. So let's do SO2. So sulfur, there's 1, and it is in group 16, so it has 6 valence, so that gives me 6. Oxygen, there are 2, and so that's 2 times 6 because it is also in group 16. So when I add that up, I get 18. So it looks like ozone does, except now we have sulfur involved. So I'm going to put S in the middle because it is our element that's by itself. Then I'm going to connect the 2 oxygens. So I've used up 4 out of the 18, so I'm now down to 14. So I'm going to complete my octet for the outside, and that will give me 12. So that's 2 left over, and as we saw in the ozone, notice that sulfur, if we look at sulfur, there's 2, 4, 6, so it does not have an octet. So I'm going to erase 2 of your electrons, and then I'm going to make that into another bond. And so now I have an octet, 2, 4, 6, 8 for the outside, 2, 4, 6, 8 for the sulfur, 2, 4, 6, 8. But as you can see, I could have done that on the right side as well, so I have to show that drawing. So I'm going to put my double bond on the right side. So it looks like that. And then draw your brackets. So again, the examples I have shown you only have 2 resonance, but you in your homework or your drawing that you're going to put in your notebook, you may have one that has 3. So that's resonance. So let's look at when you have a polyatomic ion. Remember, polyatomic ions are some are positive and some are negative. And actually, we only had 1 positive. But you might want to pause the video and write down that when you add electrons, you're going to add electrons if you have a negative ion. You're going to subtract electrons if you have a positive. And remember, you have to, go back and think, okay, electrons are negative. So if I have a negative ion, that must have meant it gained electrons. If I have a positive ion, it must have meant I had lost electrons. So that's why you're adding and subtracting. So let's see how that works. We're going to still do the same thing. Sulfur, there's 1 sulfur, and then it's in group 16, so it has 6 total valence, and that gives me 6. Oxygen, as you can see, the subscript there is 4. Oxygen is in group 16, so it has 6 valence, and that's a total of 24, which gives us 30. So we have a total of 30, but hold on, we got this 2 negative. So that means we have to, as it says here, you've got to add that number of electrons. So that's going to be plus 2. So anytime you have a negative polyatomic, you've got to add 2. So I'm going to put total of 32. So sulfur is by itself, so it goes in the center. And then we're going to place our oxygens around sulfur. Now we have used up 2, 4, 6, 8 out of the 32. And that gives me 24. So now I'm going to make my octet for my surrounding oxygens. There's 6, there's 12, there's 18, and then there's 24. So I've used up all of 24. So now that dot didn't show up. So we have an octet for all 5 of those atoms. 8 going around this oxygen, 8, 8, 8, and the the sulfur also has 8. So there's one more extra thing you're going to have to do. Just like your residence, you put it in brackets, so you're going to have to do that. And then on the outside, you're going to put 2 negative. That lets you know that was a polyatomic ion. So just like your resonance, you have to put it in brackets with the 2 negative in this case for that charge. Now notice there's only one way to draw this one because you don't have one side having a double bond or a triple bond and the other side having a single. All of the sides are equal because they have single bonds. All right, let's look at ammonium. So we have NH4, so we're going to count. So in our formula, there's only one nitrogen. Nitrogen is in group 15, so it has a total of 5 valence electrons. So 1 times 5 is 5. Hydrogen, there are 4, and it has is in group 1, so it has 1 valence. So that's a total of 4. So that gives us 9. But again, now we have this charge, positive. So if you wrote that in your notes from the previous slide, it says if you have a positive ion, then that means you've got to subtract. Because remember, this ion right here is positive because it has lost an electron. So I'm going to subtract 1, and that gives me 8. So we've got to use up 8 valence electrons. So the nitrogen goes in the center. Then we're going to connect our 4 hydrogens by a single bond. And that created 8 valence electrons. So that gives us 0, right? So that's 2, 4, 6, 8. So we've used up all of our valence electrons. Now, please remember, hydrogen is stable with just 2. There's hydrogens 2, 2, 2, and 2. Never ever will you have any electrons on the outside of hydrogen. So if you catch yourself doing that, you got to remember hydrogen is stable with just 2. Nitrogen is stable with 8. There's its 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. Since this is a polyatomic, again, we're going to put it in brackets. And yep, we're going to put that plus sign outside the bracket so that we know that that's a polyatomic. Only one way to draw this one because they're all single bonds. So you're going to draw these 4 in your notes along with the rest of them that you have. When we meet back together, you're going to do an activity looking at those drawings that hopefully you will do at home, and then you'll get a chance to draw them so I can look and see what they look like. But put these in your notes just like those other ones, and you got to practice. That's the only way that will help you to learn this. So I'll see you at the next in-class session.